reduced membership fees of Bhayandar CP Study Circle for financial year 21-22 from rupees 1500 to rupees 1000. Members who have already paid rupees 1500 towards membership fees will get credit of 500 rupees at the time of next renewal. Secondly, Study Circle will distribute WIRC reference manual to paid members as on 31st July 21. And we will share a separate Google form for confirming address for courier purpose. And Study Circle will contribute to CABF rupees 100 per paid member for financial year 21 and 22 for benefit of our professional colleagues who are suffering in this pandemic period. And lastly, as a token of gratitude to all VCM speakers who have shared their knowledge at our platform since COVID lockdown and going forward too, Bhayandar CP Study Circle will present 500 rupees receipt as a contribution to CABF. And with this, I want to thank you all for support and motivation. And I especially thanks to our past conveners, CA Amit Agarwal and CA Nikunj Bhangadia for guiding and supporting. Members, it's our 12th VCM for financial year 21-22 and our today's topic is issues relating to refund under export, and we have CA Gautam Lat, expert in-house speaker, to give insight of the topic. Before moving to technical part of today's session, I request CA Garima Agarwal to formally introduce our speaker. Garima, over to you.
Thank you. Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome, Gautam sir. Gautam Lad is a qualified CA and a partner with IRA and Associates with over 8 years of experience in indirect taxation. He has prepared various representations to government on key industry issues, including representation of Parliamentary Select Committee on GST. He is a core member of Indirect Study Group of WIRC. He is founding member of YCACA, Young Chartered Accountant Connect. He was elected as a secretary of WIRC in 2011-12. He was nominated for GST and IDT Committee in 2020-21 and Digital Transformation and Technology Committee in 2019-20 of WIRC. He is a regular speaker at various study circles on GST and also contributed in various publications, including WIRC Referencer. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Garima. Welcome, Gautam ji.
Thank you, Garima. Thank you, Ritu. Thank you, Nikunji, Amit ji, for the opportunity. Let me share my screen.
Yeah.
I hope my screen is visible and I am audible and my video is visible.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. So let me quickly start with today's topic. So today's topic allotted to me is GST refund, issues in GST refund relating to exports. So we'll be covering macro understanding of refund, and there are 3 types of refund we are going to cover in today's session. One is refund of IGST paid on export of goods, refund of accumulated credit on export of goods and services, refund of GST paid on export of services. So before going to technicalities of GST refund or provision of GST law, let us set the stage why GST refund is required, why there is a need on the government part or on the administration part to give the refund. So as we understand that all the countries, every country want to increase their export revenue, and that's how they built economy, and that's how they increase the GDP by earning foreign exchange earning and exporting products, exporting goods and services, and contributing to domestic manufacturer and domestic service provider. So that is one incentive, major incentive for a country to boost the exports. So that is on the one part. The second, there is a basic understanding, between countries that only goods and services to be exported, not the duties and taxes. So when I'm exporting, for example, this laptop to USA or to any other country, the underlying idea is that I need to only export the product. So I cannot export the duties and taxes which has this product suffered during the production cycle or during the process of export. So the basic idea is that what I can export is the only goods and services. Whatever taxes and duties relating to this product should remain into the country or exporting country. They should not flow to the consuming state or consuming country. Since indirect tax is indirect tax is a consumption-based tax. So generally, the mechanism how it flows is wherever goods or services flow, it flow with the goods and services to the end consumer. So if I am selling a laptop to you, so the taxes GST will flow to you, and then you are selling to let's example B, then the taxes will flow to B and ultimately to the consumer. So that's how it is a consumption-based taxation, and that's why it is called a consumption-based taxes because it flows along with the goods and services to the end consumer. Okay, but in case of export, there is a need that the taxes should not flow with the product and with the services. The only goods and services should flow. Just give me a minute. I think there is a technical glitch at my end. Oh. Okay. Is it visible? The screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll continue. So the idea is that only goods and services to be exported and not the duties and taxes. So that is the reason that there is a need that refund has to be granted, or there has to be some mechanism to compensate the exporter or to service provider wherever they are making the export. So that is the basic idea. One is that it is beneficial to the country because it is boosting export, ultimately contributing to the foreign exchange earning and to the growth of the GDP. And the second, that ultimately we cannot export duties and taxes. So we have to either compensate to the exporter, or we should have a mechanism to refund it. While keeping in that mind, I have kept a news printing. So it is a recent news where India loses export incentive case filed by US at WTO. I'm sure all of my friends might be hearing a lot of news that US has filed a case against India at WTO wherever they have challenged all the schemes. So relating to foreign trade policy, including SEZ scheme of India, entire SEZ Act in India, they have challenged the MEIS. That is the reason that government is discontinuing with the MEIS, and they are coming up with RODSDL new schemes of incentives. Recently, 3 days back, Australia has challenged China that they have imposed the anti-dumping duty on Australian wines. Few months back, I think in March somewhere, Australia has filed a complaint against India that India is incentivizing sugar exports. So they have filed a case against India. So indirect tax is also a measure, though it is a primary source of revenue collection for a government, it is also a measure to control the foreign trades or cross-border transactions. So suppose if I don't want to flow plastic, or in the last year we have all seen that there was a campaign going on against China that we should not use the Chinese product. How the government should implement it? They do not have any right, since India is a part of WTO since 1995. I cannot straight away restrict the goods coming into India from China. What I can do as a country, or what India can do, they can increase the import duties, they can impose the countervailing duties, anti-dumping duty. That's how they restrict the import and export or the cross-border transactions. So for every country, indirect taxation is also a tool to control the cross-border transactions. So with this understanding, there was an agreement, there was a convention where it is said that I cannot subsidize export also. So while I have to make sure that the duties is not being passed on to the other country, there is also a counter agreement which India has signed that I cannot incentivize or subsidize export to dump Indian products to any other territory. So for example, if you are exporting, I cannot give you 10% of your export as a benefit straight away. So, to incentivize export so that your product can be dumped to a different country. So this is also cannot be done. If India does that, then someone will be filing complaint against India, like US has filed in the last year, and the decision was against India. So that's how wherever we as a foreign trade policy or as a customs or as a GST, wherever bureaucrats or as a India as a country, they form the policy, they have to be mindful that they should incentivize the export by a mechanism, and it should not be to that extent that ultimately it will have a subsidize or countervailing effect, which is detrimental to any other countries or any other country's product. So we have to make a balance in between that. Key legislation, which regulate is, one is the FTP, the second is customs, and then there is a WTO regulations. So with this background, that we understand that it is in favor of India to incentivize the export, and it is also obligatory on the part of government to give the refund of exports, okay, or to compensate for the duties paid on export of goods or services. So with this understanding, we all understand that refund is a prerequisite or is an obligation on the part of government to give the refunds on export of goods and services. That is the reason we have a specific chapter on refunds, starting from section 54, and we have so many rules, 89, 99 till 96, 97 on the refunds. So the refund particular as a section has been given a very prime importance in the GST legislation. So with this background, we'll start that, how the refund has been given, why. So we all understand why there's a need of refund now. So let us understand how the refund is given, and how a chartered accountant we do, help clients in getting refunds, and what are the key issues which we face in the entire process of GST refund. So today's session will be, I'll be limiting to the GST refund in case of exports. So there are three types of refund. One is, we understand that with payment of taxation, without payment of taxation. So without payment of tax, so there are two options available in GST law. One is that you can pay the taxes on export and you can claim that back. And the second one is that you choose not to pay the taxes on export and you claim your input side as a refund. Okay, so there are two mechanisms. One is on the output side, which is called with payment of taxes, and the second is on input side, which is called without payment of taxes. Okay, apart from, there are a lot of other refunds, which is like inverted duty structure, deemed export, SEZ. So we are not going to cover those in today's session. So we'll be covering all the refund issues and refund scenarios relating to export of goods and services. So let's quickly move to the legislation part of it. What is the refund? So the refund is defined as an inclusive definition. Refund include taxes paid on zero-rated supplies of goods and services or both. Okay, so the first part of refund covers the taxes paid on zero-rated supplies of goods or services or both, wherever it is a composite or mixed supply. The second part of refund covers the taxes paid on input or input services used in making such zero-rated supplies. So these are the two parts which we are going to discuss. The third one covers that, refund on taxes paid on deemed export, and the fourth one is, section 54(3), which is inverted duty structure refund. So we'll be covering those two areas. If you can see that, it covers only input and input services, not the capital goods. So please be in mind that when you are going to claim the accumulated credit refund, accumulated ITC refund, it will only be limited to input and input services. We'll discuss in detail in later on slides, but as a definition of refund, they have excluded the capital goods from there. They've only covered input and input services. So let us now understand what is zero-rated supply. So zero-rated supply is well defined in IGST Act, section 16(1) of IGST Act. It includes two things. One is the export of goods or services or both, and the second is relating to SEZ. So wherever you're supplying goods or services or both to SEZ or SEZ unit or SEZ developer, so both are covered in the second. So the firstly, which is covered, export of goods or services, or export of goods, export of services or export of goods or both, in case of composite and mixed supplies. So this is particularly called as zero-rated supply. So what do we mean by zero-rated supply? So we understand that the export of goods and export of services are covered under zero-rated supply. How it is zero-rated? What is the difference between zero-rated or exempt supplies? To understand this situation, exempt supplies. So recently, there was a political campaign going on that the vaccine has to be, zero-rated. and all the medicines relating to COVID has to be zero rated. There was a lot of discussion going on, and then suddenly our honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has given a statement, and she has done a press release and has said that doing exemption, giving exemption will not cut down the cost of the vaccine or will not cut down the cost of medicines relating to COVID. It will increase cost, and the medicines will become expensive. So let us understand, why this kind of statement and what was the idea behind that statement, and then we'll move forward to zero rated versus exempt supply. So the idea of that statement that, if anything is exempt, for example, this particular, again, laptop is exempt from GST. Okay. So all the parts which I am using to manufacture this laptop is taxable. So I am procuring plastic, I am procuring keyboard, I am procuring IC chip, I am procuring motherboard, I am procuring webcam, I am procuring screen, everything is taxable. So someone is charging GST on it. Okay. Ultimately, I'm manufacturing a laptop which is exempt. Okay. So anyway, you have borne the incidence of tax on your input side. So if you are not eligible to claim that credit, since you are providing exempt supplies, you are not eligible to claim that credit. So if you are not eligible to claim that credit, okay, then it will ultimately have a burden, or have a cascading effect, or have a burden, have a taxation impact in the cost of laptop and the price of laptop. So by giving an exemption, I am not making laptop free to you. Okay. And how it will have a cascading effect? Suppose this laptop has a 500 rupees of input. Okay, let's assume the entire transaction is of 10,000 and 500 rupees was input tax. I am procuring a laptop which I am using for my services, and I'm not eligible to claim the credit, so I'll expense it out. Suppose my entire cost of services due to this laptop or due to a particular service is 5,000. I'm doing validation, and then I'm providing a service of 15,000 due to this laptop. So I'm charging the entire tax on 15,000. So ultimately, the tax which was involved in the cost of laptop has also suffered the GST. So making a particular product exempt does not make sense, need not to be making it cheaper in the market. Okay. So the idea was that of that press conference, what can be done? Okay. So there are two kind of solution. One is that I make, instead of 18%, I make laptop as a chargeable to 5%. And I give the refund of balance credit under inverted duty structure. That is one solution. The second solution is zero rating of it. So zero rating is only happen in India for the purpose of exports and supplies to SEZ. So we are discussing exports. So how I can zero rate it? So zero rate the cost of GST. So the government has provided a mechanism that how I can do a zero rating of it, that I allow the 500 rupees of refund to the manufacturer or to the supplier of this laptop. So ultimately, the cost of GST in the entire supply chain is zero. Okay, which was not there in case of exemption. Okay, so that's how the entire zero rating is done. So I'm sure all of us are clear what is the difference between zero rating and exempt supply. So now coming to the next question, what if I'm exporting this laptop? What if I am exporting any exempt goods or any exempt services to outside India? Whether I'll still be eligible to claim the refund? The answer is, by going this logic, yes. Okay, and it is written in the law also. But if we understand the logic, we come to know about the answer that yes, since I am doing, I am making an export transaction, I shall be eligible to claim the refund, whatever inputs or input services I have used to manufacture or to provide such services. So the next question is that what is the export of goods? So the export of goods is very well, very clearly defined, that export of goods means taking goods out of India to a place outside India. So if I'm taking a particular goods outside India, is it a export of goods transaction? Okay. Suppose a US company is paying me today to deliver a particular goods to Thane. Okay. The holding company is paying me in convertible foreign exchange. I'm raising invoice on the foreign company. Can it be treated as export of goods? No. And the definition is very similar to the definition provided under customs law. So customs law is very, is the same definition as we use in the IGST Act. So if I am sending goods outside India, okay, technically it is an export of goods as per GST law. Okay, even if I'm receiving money from India, I'm billing to Indian entity, then also it will be treated as export of goods in the eyes of GST law. It will have a different type of complication under FEMA and all those regulations, but for the purpose of GST, it will be treated as export of goods. Now the question comes that what about the sale of goods by the duty-free shops? So when I'm going to Dubai, okay, so when I cross the security check of airport, and I'm buying, certain liquor or some, products from duty-free shops. Liquor is a bad example because it is not under the GST, but let's assume I'm buying another, a gadget, electric gadget or something from a duty-free shops. So whether it will be treated as an export of goods. So in customs law, the sale receipt, which is, issued by duty-free shop, is to be treated as a deemed shipping bill. Okay. So since it is a deemed shipping bill, it will be treated as a export of goods. And sir, so the next question is that Gautam, we are not taking goods outside India. So then the definition fails. No. So if you see, all the duty-free shops are beyond the crossing custom frontier. So technically they are beyond outside the custom frontier. So there is a position can be adopted since already goods has already been moved outside India. Since I'm selling it outside India, so the GST should not be applicable, and the transaction should be treated as an export of goods. We have a Kerala, very recent judgment of Kerala High Court on this particular issue, and this has been held as a export of goods. Now coming to, so goods is very simple. We don't have to fulfill any condition. The simple thing, the simple test which we have to pass is that the goods has to move outside India. It will be treated as an export of goods under GST law. In export of services, there are 5 or 6 conditions. One is that the supplier has to be located in India. The recipient has to be located outside India. The place of supply has to be outside India. The critical condition is that the payment of such services has been received by supplier of service in convertible foreign exchange or INR wherever permitted by RBI. Okay. There is a lot of issue, lot of litigations going on around it, and then finally this amendment has come, and the GST legislature has allowed us to receive amount in convertible foreign exchange or in INR instead of CAFE wherever permitted by RBI. So I'll just give you the example, how this entire issue arose. So why earlier this Indian rupees was not there in the definition initially in the GST law. So wherever I am selling goods on online platforms like Amazon or through my own website or any other payment gateway, so the person who is ordering, so B2C transaction, wherever the customers are located outside India. So when they are ordering, they are paying it online through a payment gateway. The payment gateway can be PayPal or Transwise or any kind of payment gateway which is in existence outside India. So the person is making payment to them. He might be paying in dollar, but what payment gateway does, he's transferring amount from his local bank account to my account in INR. Okay, and I'm not getting any FIRCs for that. So whether this particular restriction for a service, there's a condition that I should receive money in convertible foreign exchange or in INR wherever permitted by RBI. So how do I fulfill the obligation that I have received convertible foreign exchange? So then the government has said that if it is permitted by RBI, I'll permit you under GST law also. So we don't have to really look into the transaction. The idea is very simple, that if it is permitted by RBI, it is permitted under GST law also. The test is very simple of whether I have received convertible foreign exchange or I have received INR as approved by RBI or as permitted by RBI. The test is very simple. If it is allowed under FEMA, if it is allowed by RBI, it is allowed under GST law also. So there was a concept of Vostro account. If foreign agent is maintaining a Vostro account is Indian bank, and then he is transferring amount from that bank, and then I am paying it. The procedural issue was still there, that how do I get the FIRC when I go for the refund claim? Because as we know that when we apply for the refund of export of services, we need to submit the copy of FIRCs. So how do I obtain the copy of FIRCs? So then you have to approach the banker of the payment gateway. So for example, you are maintaining a bank account with Yes Bank. Okay. The Vostro account is with the Citibank, okay, of your payment gateway. So you must be receiving money from Yes Bank, you must be receiving INR in Yes Bank. But if you approach Citibank, Okay, the Citibank will give you FIRC because they are maintaining the Vostro account. So initially we used to receive a lot of queries on this part, and we had struggled a lot for our clients to get the refund. But for the benefit of members, you will get the FIRC from the Citibank or from the bank wherever the foreign party is maintaining Vostro account, and you have to collect the FIRCs from there, and that's how you can process the refund. So I am covering all the legislation provisions, and we are discussing simultaneously whatever issues are there. If anyone has any kind of queries, they can just mention in the chat box, and we'll be taking queries at the end. So this is done. So now coming back to our today's topic, that what all options are available to the exporter. First, as I said, that one option is that they can export under LUT or bond. Okay, so they are eligible to claim the input side refund. They can claim the unutilized credit refund. Section 16(3) Rule 89(4), 89(4)B will come play. ITC on capital goods is not eligible. We have already discussed, since the refund definition itself is excluding it. Okay, on payment of tax, it is output side refund. When you are making supplies, okay, you need to pay the IGST, and then you can claim the refund of IGST. Which option is better? So let us see, what is the process, what are the pain areas. Then I think we might be able to conclude which option is better, but it is very subjective. It depends on your export turnover. It depends on your credit. It depends on your margin. You need to work around it, and you need to work, on the quantum of refund and the timelines of the refund. And then I think we can answer that which option is better for a particular client or for a particular person. This is the type of refund we have already discussed. Refund of unutilized input tax credit on account of export of goods and services without payment of tax. The exporter has to file for the refund claim. Refund of taxes paid on export of service with payment of tax. The exporter of such services has to file for the refund. Refund of taxes paid on export of goods with payment of tax. Exporter of such goods has to file the refund. Let us see the legal provision of refund, quickly. So the refund, so section 54(1) provide for the refund, that the refund of tax, interest, or any other amount to be claimed, and the application has to be made before the expiry of 2 years from the relevant date. We'll see what is the relevant date. So the idea is that what refund can be done. So the refund can be for 3 things. One is taxes, the second is interest, the third is any other amount paid. Can penalty be covered under any other amount paid? We are litigating a matter, but to our mind, anything which you are paying, any other amount paid is a wider term. So whatever I am paying, in the pressure or assessment, if it is refundable to me, I think we can get the refund of it. Then we come to the 54(3), which is providing for the refund of unutilized credit. Refund of unutilized ITC permitted only in 2 situations. One is for the zero-rated supply. If I am availing any inputs or input services and I am providing zero-rated supply, I can claim the refund of input services. The second is in case of IDS. IDS is inverted duty structure, where I am availing certain services or certain goods. For example, I am availing certain goods at the rate of 18% or 28%, and I'm supplying at 5 or 12. So there is an inverted duty structure. So I can claim the accumulated ITC. Only in those 2 cases, okay, the refund is permissible. We receive, sometimes queries from the client that, in my credit balance, I have 5 lakh rupees of balance. Can I claim the refund? So we have to advise him accordingly that, if you are into those 2 things, only then you are eligible to claim the refund. Otherwise, your credit ledger balance per se is not claimable as a refund under GST law. Okay. There are certain restrictions also, that who cannot claim the refund of unutilized ITC. So the first and very most restriction is that if the goods which we are exporting is subject to export duty, there are certain goods which are subject to export duty. If you are exporting any goods which are subject to export duty, you are not eligible to claim the refund. There is a materiality limit also of 1,000 rupees. You cannot claim the refund for any amount below 1,000 rupees or up to 1,000 rupees. The one and the most litigated, restriction which we have seen, at least 4 amendments, including 2 retrospective amendments, is that wherever the supplier of goods or services or both avails the duty drawback, he cannot claim the refund of unutilized ITC. Okay, now, the process is very much simpler. Initially, there are a lot of Gujarat High Court judgment, Bombay High Court judgment on this particular issue, on being higher rate of drawback and lower rate of drawback. Now everything is settled, the dust is settled, and the department has issued a lot of clarification on that part. We'll see, in the next slide. And the fourth restriction is that if supplier has claimed the refund of IGST paid on export of goods or services on particular those supplies, he cannot claim the refund of unutilized ITC. So I cannot claim both the refunds for a particular supply. Okay, either I have to choose option A of payment, with payment of tax, or option B without payment of tax and claiming the refund of my accumulated ITC, whatever ITC is accumulated due to zero rating of supply. Then the duty drawback and eligibility of unutilized ITC. So as I mentioned, there was a lot of issues regarding to this. So then finally, they have clarified. So there are 3-4 components when I import. One is basic custom duty, which is we call as a, import duty. Compensation cess might be applicable, IGST, and there are other cesses. So the government has clarified that if I am claiming drawback only in respect to basic custom duty, okay, then I can go for the unutilized credit ITC refund, because I have not claimed any drawback for that particular IGST on import. Okay. Similarly, if I am claiming IGST only in the drawback in respect of central taxes, then state taxes shall be eligible for the refund of unutilized ITC. So it is a very welcome circular which government has issued, and a lot of problem of industry, who are into duty drawback has been resolved by this circular. Now coming back to the provision, so we have divided in 3 parts. One is that IGST paid on export of goods. The second is accumulated ITC on export of goods and services, which is without payment route. And third is IGST paid on export of services. So the first one is the most simple and the most litigated route, I would say. Litigation, when I say litigation, so in this particular scenario, the DRI has issued at least more than 1,000 notices. So department litigation is one thing. This is one particular thing in which as a professional, as a clients, we made most of the mistakes, and we are facing a lot of issues from the DRI. So I'll see when we move forward what are all those issues. So let us understand the process of IGST paid on export of goods. The most simple process, this is called automated route. We all understand that IGST paid on export of goods is automatic. We don't have to interact any officer. Okay, I don't have to visit my jurisdictional officer. I am not obligated to take care of him or to submit any kind of documents to that officer. It is an automated route and the best route which is available as far as the export of goods is concerned. Okay. So first of all, automated route is not available for services export. Okay, it is only to the export of goods. Okay, there is no separate application. So it is governed by Rule 96. Rule 96 says that the shipping bill filed by the exporter, the moment, so when you do the export, okay, so there will be a late export order, then you will be filing a shipping bill. So whenever you file a shipping bill, okay, that will be deemed to be your refund application. Okay, there are 2 conditions that, so one condition is that the other person, the shipping line has to file a EGM, Export General Manifesto or Departure Manifesto. Okay, and you have to furnish all the details properly in GSTR 3B. You have to pay the taxes, right? So there is no separate application. There is no department intervention. There is no manual process. If all the details, my friends, if you are filing all the details properly, you'll get the refund within 25 days of filing of the return. It's the most simplest way. Okay. What is the process? The process is, the first thing you will be filing GSTR 1. Okay, so suppose you made you made an export of goods. Okay, so the first step is to disclose that particular transaction in table 6A of GSTR 1. Okay, then what will happen? Then you have to make the payment of taxes under GSTR 3B. So be careful, you have to disclose under GSTR 3B 3.1B. So there are 2 options when you file GSTR 3B 3.1A, the domestic supply, outward supply, and the 1B, which is zero rated supply. So you need to disclose the transaction properly in GSTR 3B. Okay, what the system will do? System will match it if it will match. So suppose you have disclosed 500 rupees of liability in GSTR 1 and you have disclosed 500 rupees of liability in GSTR 3B, the system will automatically match it. Once it is matched, the system will transmit the invoices. Okay, once the invoices is transmitted, it will reach to the ICE gate. The entire process is automated. The IceGate is also a government portal, automated portal. IceGate, what will do, he'll pick up these invoices. IceGate already has data of shipping bills. He pick up the data of shipping bill. He compare. Okay, if there is any error, he'll throw the error. Otherwise, what he'll do, he'll generate the scroll. Okay, once the scroll is generated, this scroll will go to the PFMS. Scroll is nothing but a check by government. So like, when we make the payment, we issue a check or we do the NEFT, RTGS, the government has a, system of generating scroll. They generate a scroll, ke boss, I need to make these 50 or 5,000 payments, and they'll transfer this scroll to PFMS. PFMS is nothing but Public Finance Management System of India. Most of the government payments, central government payments, are regulated through PFMS in India. Okay, so your any client, if you see all the whoever your client is into government supplies or dealing with governments, most of the payment in today's area is coming through or routed through the PFMS. So this is the process, and the entire process is automated. If you have correctly filed the GSTR1, you don't have to do anything else. You'll automatically get the credit in your bank account. Okay, let us see how the process is. See, so that's how your GSTR1 look like. You have to be very careful while filing this port code. If this port code is proper, then only so the customs. Okay, so we have to understand that GST is an independent law, custom is an independent law. The customs work on a port concept. Okay, if you tell IceGate ki boss, I have exported through Nhava Sheva, he'll pick up the data of Nhava Sheva. If you tell the IceGate that I have exported through Mundra port, he'll pick up the data of Mundra port. Okay, so INNSA is a Nhava Sheva port ID. So whenever you are putting details in GSTR1 for a client who is into export of goods with payment of taxes, you have to be very careful while putting port details, shipping bill details. There are a lot of issues arising. So you won't believe the custom authorities has issued 5 circulars so far only relating to the errors in this particular table. They have issued 5 circulars. They have extended, I think 4 times the timeline. Recently also they have extended the timeline. And now after being fed up, so we are making so many mistakes, or client is making so many mistakes, that after being fed up, they started charging for it. कि boss, अगर तुम ऐसी गलतियां करोगे, or if you continue to do that, I'll charge you. So from last month onwards, they started charging कि I'll charge 1,000 rupees per shipping bill to match it if it is not matched, or if there is an error of SB 005. So this is on the GSTR1. So please be careful while filing GSTR1. The invoice number. So whatever invoice number we are mentioning, it has to match with the shipping invoice number mentioned in shipping bill. The invoice number date, the port has to be, we have to be very careful, and the shipping bill number and shipping bill date. Okay, then we need to select with payment of tax, and we can disclose the amount and the value. So once you do this, then you will be filing your GSTR3B. You need to make the payment of 6,75,000. You need to disclose 37 lakh rupees in GSTR3B in 3.1B column, and then your data will be transmitted. Okay, if you want to see what is the data in shipping bill, you can check on the IceGate website. I have given the link over here. You can track any shipping bill from here. Then once you file the GSTR3B in GST website, we have option refund track status of invoice data to be shared with IceGate. So here, suppose I have done for 2021 March. So you can see we have shown in table 6,75,000, and this entire invoice has been transmitted. If anything, if any error is there, they'll give over here. So the first one is that, wherever port code we have mentioned, we have forgot to mention port code. So they'll not transmit the data because this system doesn't know which port I have to send the data, what to tell IceGate. So वापस आ जाएगा, he'll say, boss, I don't know which port I have to go. So you need to tell me which port I have to go. Okay. So that's how this entire process will work. And ultimately, once the data will flow from here, okay. So I have put all the details properly. I have paid the taxes. So the first thing what they'll do, they'll match the taxes, okay, along with the GSTR1. So GSTR3B and GSTR1, if it is matching, they'll transmit the data to the port which you have mentioned. So only 2 criteria which they are checking. One is the port code, and the second is whether you have paid properly taxes or not. Then they'll transmit the data. Now coming to the IceGate. So suppose we have mentioned port code properly. I mentioned INSA1, which is Nhava Sheva. Okay, and I have exported from Nhava Sheva only. So the invoices are being transmitted to IceGate. Now what IceGate will do, the IceGate will pull up the data of shipping bill, which is already available with him. Now he'll match it. Okay. So if it is successfully validated, he'll do SB000 and scroll will be generated. If there is any error, okay. So I have mentioned the type of error, which kind, type of error can be there. One is invalid shipping bill details. You have mentioned a wrong shipping bill details. What is the corrective step? You have to amend your GSTR1. You have to put the right shipping bill details. That again, the invoice will be transmitted and IceGate will match it and they'll process the refund. EGM not filed. EGM is Export General Manifesto, which is generally filed by the shipping lines. Okay. If it is not filed, what you can do, you need to approach your shipping line. Boss, I have exported this material. Okay. The material has already reached to the destination, but still you have not filed the EGM. Please file the EGM. Once they file the EGM, it will automatically get processed. GSTN, which means if you have mentioned wrong GSTN number on shipping bill and you are, giving everything right, but on shipping bill, it is mentioned wrong. So you have to amend the shipping bill, or, you have to approach your CHA. Because this shipping bill I have mentioned wrongly. Record already received and validated SB004 is okay. When there is a duplication of transaction. SB005, this is the most prevalent error, invalid invoice number. Okay, friends, please be careful while filing GSTR1. I'm insisting again and again. If your invoice number in shipping bill is 001/2021, please mention 001/2021 in GSTR return also. Do not mention 1/21, 1/2021, it will not match. Okay. So earlier there was a mechanism. The mechanism was that you can submit the concordance table to the custom authorities. Custom authorities, at the port of export. You can approach them and you can submit the concordance table. They will, resolve the error and they'll issue the refund. Now customs is processing, at least, if I'm not wrong, at least at Nhava Sheva, they are processing more than 1,500 requests per day. Okay, that was the quantum of error we are talking about. So now they are fed up. They said, from now onwards in lockdown. So this is, there is a lot of lockdown amendments which is there in GST refund particular. They have made at least 7 to 8 amendments in GST refund during this lockdown, the entire lockdown 1 and 2. So in the lockdown, what they have done, they have made the amendment was okay. If you are approaching us that, there is an error of SB005, I have wrongly mentioned invoice number in my GSTR1, I'll correct it and I'll process the refund. For that, I'll charge you 1,000 rupees. So now the process is, available. Earlier, there was a restriction initially. What they have given window for 1718 only, that only 1718 shipping bills can be rectified. Then they have extended to 1819. Then they have extended to 1920. Then finally, they have extended to 2021. Then, they realize that, client or we are bound to make mistakes. So let us make it a facility that anyone can pay 1,000 rupees and get it corrected. So we have recently paid it. So this is the performa, how the challan will look like. You can just approach, any custom authorities, you can make the payment and you can mention all the details that which shipping bill you want to, amend, and you can submit the concordance table, your refund will be processed. Once this thing is done, you can, check your scroll from here. This is, again, IceGate website. You can just mention IC number, PAN number and details. You can check your scroll status real-time basis. Okay. If you mention a detail, you'll get all the data, what all scrolls have been generated for this particular client, how much the amount has been reflected, on which date it has been sent to the PFMS. The next step, once the scroll is generated, okay, it will go to the PFMS. So that's how it will look like, whether it has been sent to the PFMS. So if it is accepted, then, that means you will receive the money. And this is the PFMS. I have given the link over here. You can, just mention the bank account detail of your client and you can check, whether what is the UTR number and everything. And that's how you can keep your client updated every time at every aspect of the refund processing. This entire system is automated. Then there was again the issue, since we are bound to make mistakes. So again, what happened, since, as I mentioned, that the zero rated supply has to be mentioned in 3.1b of GSTR 3b. So what happened at the time of filing GSTR 3b, our article must have uploaded in GSTR 3.1a. They paid the taxes, everything is right, but instead of showing in zero rated supply and taxes in front of zero rating supply, they have disclosed the taxes in normal domestic supplies. Okay, and they have filed the return. So I was supposed to pay 100 rupees. I have paid 100 rupees of IGST. but instead of paying under zero rated, I have paid under the wrong head. So what about these errors? So generally, earlier the the transmission facility at GST portal, they were not used to transmit those invoices. They were always showing error and a negative amount in export ledger, and they were not ready to transmit the invoices to iceGate. So now what has happened, they have covered, then the government has given a facility that till 19 you whatever shipping bills you have filed will check on cumulative basis, and then again they realize that this is a continuous error. They have extended this facility to 31st March 21. So wherever you made such kind of mistakes, there is a circular, again a lockdown circular issued on 16th Feb 21. You can just the iceGate will compare a cumulative figure. You can produce a CA certificate that there is no discrepancy between IGST amount refunded of export and the actual IGST payment on export of goods. With this CA certificate, they'll issue the refund. Now come to the litigation part. So when I said that this is the most litigative, or this is the area where DRI has issued the major notices to the client, where in which section, so this is the rule where we are facing a lot of issues. So see, so there was a rule 9610, it always existed. Okay, there is a restriction that who cannot claim the refund of IGST paid on export of goods or services. Okay, the restriction says, so there are two para of it. If my supplier, suppose I am an exporter, okay, if my supplier has availed benefit of 48 and 40. Okay, what is 48? 48 is deemed export. If he has claimed the benefit of deemed export, okay. The second 40/17, 40/70 is merchant exporter. If he has given me, goods at 0.1% or 0.05%, I cannot make the export with payment of IGST and claim the refund. That is the first restriction. The second restriction, if I have imported the goods, or if I have procured goods from SEZ or someone, and I have claimed the benefit of notification 78/17 or 79/17. So those notifications, one is that when as a EOU I am procuring any goods or importing any goods without payment of IGST, okay, and I am importing any goods under advance authorization or EPCG scheme, okay, I cannot export with payment of IGST and claim the refund from the government. Okay. No one has realized. Companies like, you can name the most compliant and the big companies, no one has realized. They, there was a practice in excise and customs that they used to import under advance authorization or EPCG scheme, and they keep doing export. Okay, they keep doing export with payment of IGST. Suddenly one day DRI has waken the boss, there is a restriction on 9610. This kind of notices, this is the actual notice which one of our client has received. I have just shared a screenshot of it, that inquiry in connection with of incorrect availment of double benefit. What is the double benefit? That you have claimed the exemption at the time of import under section, under advance authorization. Suppose there is an advance authorization which is available at the time of import. I have not paid the IGST. When I'm exporting, I'm paying IGST and I'm claiming the refund. So there is a double benefit. Okay. So what government is said, there was a lot of issue going on. The DRI, the department has issued notices to even to the people who has claimed the benefit of basic custom duty. So as we discussed, there are three taxes: BCD, basic custom duty, IGST, and compensation cess and other sessions. So even if I have claimed the benefit of BCD, the notices have been issued to me. So finally, again, in the last lockdown, the government has issued a notification, and they have clarified that if I have claimed only the benefit of basic custom duty, this restriction is not applicable to me. It is only applicable if I have claimed any benefit against the IGST or compensation cess. Then only, if I have claimed any benefit under compensation cess and IGST, then only this restriction will be available. So friends, be careful if your client is doing with payment of export. Just check it once whether he is availing any kind of benefit of any schemes, whether it is EPCG, advance authorization, or he is procuring goods from merchant exporter, even if of 1 rupees. please be careful and check it and advise him accordingly. Either stop that kind of procurement or change the mechanism. He can avail the refund of accumulated ITC. He need not to go for the IGST paid on of export of goods. So this is the litigation part. So with this, we have covered everything or all the issues, relating to IGST paid on of export of service or export of goods, sorry. Export of service is more or less similar. There are no different provisions. The only thing is export of service, you need to file application. Okay. Since there is no shipping bill, so by no mechanism. So we have to understand that if I am doing export of goods, there's a mechanism through which government can track whether actually the export of goods is happening or not. They have the custom frontier, they have shipping bill, they have issued late export order, they have EGM filed by the shipping airlines or shipping companies. Okay, so there is a mechanism they can track the export of goods. There is no mechanism to track the export of service. The only thing is that I might be receiving certain money in my bank account, convertible foreign exchange or money from the outside India. So therefore, since there is no shipping bill exists, there is no mechanism to track it exists. They have said that, if you are paying GST on export of services, please file application and submit the proof that you have exported the services and will give you the refund. So that is the reason export of goods and export of services with payment of tax are two different category and two different procedures exist for it. Only one thing, just came to my mind. So there are different kind of export mechanism. One that you can do export through sea, export through airways, export through inland waters, export through road, everything is possible, right? If you are doing export through courier, okay, it is very prevalent in e-commerce industry where we are doing export through courier, through DHL or through any courier agency. Okay, you will be getting a shipping bill. Okay, please ensure that your client is getting shipping bills. In case of export of courier, what happens generally they do through personal shipping. They show that, I'm gifting it to one of my friend located outside India, and they don't do in a commercial way. So please make sure that wherever your client or, someone is doing export through courier, they should be doing through a proper route and they are getting CSB 5. CSB 5 is Courier Shipping Bill 5, which is the name of the shipping bill. Now, the process of courier export is not automated. Okay, since courier export does not flow through the IceGate mechanism, the process is not automated. And currently, friends, we are struggling to get the refund of goods made, goods exported through courier mode with payment of IGST since July 17, because there is no mechanism exist for the automated route. When you approach the GST authorities are saying that you have to approach the customs. There is no mechanism. They are in development. They are promising since last 2 years that we are developing a mechanism where we'll match everything and we'll give you the refund, but it is the pain. So wherever your client is doing any export through courier, please advise them to not to follow the IGST paid on IGST paid mechanism. Ask them to follow without payment mechanism and claim the refund of accumulated ITC. This is only one thing I just wanted to highlight on the procedural part. Now moving forward, refund of accumulated ITC. So this is again, so refund of accumulated ITC for goods and services, more or less it's the same provision. Okay, you can file the application in a single application for goods as well as services. Okay, so no automated refund for zero rated of goods. Wherever you are claiming accumulated ITC, you have to file application which is under form RFT 1. There is a requirement of LUT when you are not paying GST. So when you are not paying GST, there is a requirement that you submit a LUT or undertaking or a bond to the government that I am making this export without payment of tax. If I do not fulfill following conditions, I'll make sure that I'll pay the IGST amount. Guys, please understand that export of goods and services, okay, is a zero rated supply. Okay, but as per IGST Act, you are supposed to charge IGST on zero rated supply. Okay, and the government will give it as a refund. So please understand that it is not like that you are not supposed to charge IGST. What government has given a benefit or an option to you. An option has been provided to the SSC that if you don't want to pay the taxes, okay, if you don't want to pay taxes, you can file an LUT or you can file a bond with us that you are doing these exports and will allow you. So first thing, it is being provided as an option that technically you are supposed to charge IGST. If you don't want to charge IGST on export of goods and services, you can file an LUT and bond and you can claim the benefit of it. What we are writing in bond? Okay, we are filing, every year at the start of the year for the clients. So there was a question to me that is there any time limit to issue invoice for goods? So we all know that there is a section 31 which says that the invoice for a particular goods, supply of goods has to be raised on or before removal of goods. Is there any time limit on the outer side that if I have raised the invoice today for a supply of goods, the goods has to be exported within that particular time? So yes, there is a timeline. Okay, and the timeline is flowing through the provision of undertaking, LUT. Okay, so in 96A, rule 96A, which talks about that you can do the refund, you can do the export without making IGST payment, they are taking two undertaking. One is that in case of goods, I'll export the goods within 3 months from the date of issue of invoice. If I don't issue, if I don't export those goods within 3 months, okay, then within 15 days of it, I'll pay, IGST along with the interest. So this is one undertaking which we are giving every year to the government. So please make sure that your time of export of goods and generation of invoice does not have a period lag beyond 90 days or beyond 3 months. Okay, if it is having, if you are raising invoices today and exporting after 3 months, tomorrow the department can come back to you and recover the interest and you have no choice. Okay, this is one provision which generally we are not aware about and we are not following it. In case of service also, we are giving an undertaking that I'll receive the convertible foreign exchange or INR as permitted by RBI within 1 year. Okay, so this is what I am giving under the undertaking, when I am availing the benefit of LUT. So please be careful, about these provisions. Now we talked about export of services. So when we talked about export of services, we understand that there is a condition that the services should have, service recipient should be located outside India. The place of supply should be outside India. Okay, I should receive convertible foreign exchange. Okay, or INR wherever permitted by RBI. That was the condition relating to services. Goods, whatever we discussed, goods, the first condition export of goods is that goods has to move outside India. Okay, it has to move within 3 months if I'm taking the benefit of LUT. Okay. There was no condition or there was no limitation on receipt of foreign conversion, CFE or convertible foreign exchange or payment for the export of goods in the past. But again, in the lockdown, they come up with a new amendment. So they have notified a new rule, Rule 96B. Again, it was introduced in March 20 last year, where any refund of unutilized ITC on account of export of goods or IGST paid on export of goods, both the scenarios, has been refunded to an applicant and the sale proceeds. The sale proceeds in respect of the above said transaction have not been realized in full or in part by the exporter within the time allowed under FEMA. Refund amount along with the interest within 30 days of the given time limit has to be refunded back to the government. So the idea is that the service historically from service tax era was always governed that the condition, the precondition to qualify as export of service is the receipt of convertible foreign exchange or receipt of amount. Okay, there was no condition existed for export of goods like that you have to receive the money. It was there in FEMA and RBI regulations, but there was no condition under GST law or under indirect taxation. Okay, from March 20, they have introduced new rule, Rule 96B, that you need to receive the sale proceeds within, whatever timeline permitted by FEMA. Currently, it's 9 months or 15 months now extended due to COVID, but you have to receive the convertible foreign exchange or sale proceeds within the 1 year or within the timeline prescribed under FEMA. So if you are violating FEMA for sale of goods, you are violating over here also. Then what is the repercussion? The repercussion that you have to pay the IGST refund, whatever you have claimed, along with the interest from the date of refund till date to the government, right? Okay. Then what if RBI permits write-off? If RBI permits write-off, then there is no recovery. What if I have received amount subsequently? So suppose FEMA time limit is over, RBI has given me one extension or whatever the reason. So I have received the money after 5 months or after 6 months to of the FEMA timeline. Then can I claim back the refund? Yes, you can claim back the refund within 3 months, but the cost of interest has already been borne by you. This particular rule has also been challenged in Gujarat High Court in Bhavani Textile. So the appeal has been admitted. We might have, honorable High Court judgment on this particular rule, whether it is constitutionally valid or not. This has been challenged under Article 14 on the equality before law. The rule has also been challenged under Article 19 of the Constitution that, it is a barrier on the running trade and business. So let us see what High Court will opine. But till that, please be careful that you need to advise wherever, we are doing export of goods or our clients are into export of goods. We need to advise the client that they have to receive the money within FEMA guidelines, or otherwise, they have to take permission from the RBI. And it is applicable in both the scenarios, with payment of IGST also and without payment also. Now coming back to our, accumulated topics. So accumulated refund. So refund of ITC accumulated due to zero rating of supplies, zero rating of goods and zero rating of services. Another important amendment, the last lockdown amendment, which has happened in this particular section, is that they have restricted the refund claim, or they restricted the value of export of goods to 1.5 times. The reason which they have given behind it is that there is a lot of fake invoicing is happening. They have there are a lot of cases. I'm sure you might have heard or read about those cases in newspaper, like a particular tiles and all these been exported at 200 times or 300 times of the value, and whatever inputs was there, okay, which has been claimed as a refund. And ultimately the government has realized that the ITC which has been claimed was due to fake invoices, and such kind of mechanism and such kind of businesses was there who used to run such kind of scandal. So to keep a check on those things, they have come up with this amendment that if you are into exports, okay, and if your value of goods is higher than 1.5 times of domestically supplied goods, like goods domestically supplied by the same or similarly placed supplier, then you have to realign your export value and accordingly you will get the refund. Okay. So let us see what is the formula and how the government is giving refund of accumulated ITC. So the refund formula is prescribed. It is very simple. A turnover of zero rated supply divided by total turnover into net ITC. Okay, turnover of zero rated supply has two components. One is export of goods, turnover of zero rated supply of goods, and turnover of zero rated of services. Okay. The refund amount is maximum refund amount which is eligible. So technically it is in proportionate of net ITC. Whatever zero rated turnover is there, in proportionate to that turnover, the government is giving back the refund. What do we understand by the net ITC? So net ITC, they have defined input and input services is the net ITC. Okay, they have clearly defined. So again, capital goods is missing. Capital goods was missing from section 54 definition. Now 89.4, they've specifically not mentioned the capital goods. So what net ITC will be? Net ITC of inputs and input services, whatever inputs and input services I have received, that net ITC multiplied by total turnover of, multiplied by total zero rated supply divided by total supplies, or export divided by total turnover, domestic plus export. That is the basic formula which has been prescribed. Now, where is the catch? So again, friends, we have seen a lot of notices coming up due to 89.4C, which they have changed is 1.5 times of goods, value of goods. So turnover of zero rated supply of goods means the value of zero rated supply of goods made under LUT during the relevant period, or 1.5 times of the value of like goods domestically supplied by the same or similarly placed supplier, whichever is less. So by 16/20 on 23rd March 20, they have amended this particular section. So now, suppose I was selling this laptop at 150 rupees or 200 rupees to someone outside India. Okay, but when I supply it domestically, I'm supplying it as 150 rupees or 100 rupees. Okay, so if domestically I'm supplying it at 100 rupees, I'm selling at 200 rupees, then my computation of refund, for the purpose of computation of refund, my value will be restricted to 150. Does that mean I cannot sell this laptop at 200? No, you can sell at whatever price you like. Okay, there is no restriction on it. Only for the purpose of computation of refund mechanism, it will be restricted to 1.5 times. What if I am paying IGST on it? I'm selling this particular laptop at 200 rupees. Okay, and let's assume 18% is the tax rate. Do I need to pay 36 rupees, or do I need to pay IGST on 150 rupees, which is 27 rupees? Okay, the answer is that you need to pay 36 rupees. Only for the purpose of this formula, you need to reconsider or recompute the value of exports of goods. Okay, so this is on the export of goods. In zero rated supply, we have two portions: export of goods, export of supply, export of services. So how do we compute export of services? Friends, please be careful. I have personally seen a lot of things around it. We are, again, the client is making a lot of mistakes when we are applying for the refund for export of services. We are taking the bill value. Okay, the export of services is linked with the receipt of payment. Okay, they have clearly defined that turnover of zero rated supply of service is equal to aggregate payment received in relevant period plus advance received in earlier period for invoices has been raised or services has been supplied in this period minus advances received in the current period for services to be supplied. For example, I have raised an invoice of export of services in the month of April 21. And I have received the money in June 20. If I am filing, let's assume I am filing a monthly refund application. I am not filing a quarterly refund application. I am filing a monthly refund application. In which period the turnover of refund will go? The turnover of zero rated supply of service will go. So to answer your question, it will go to the June, not to April. And a lot of clients and a lot of consultants I have seen, they are filing for the month of April. Today you will not realize GST law has a 5 years of limitation. Tomorrow the client will come, the department will come back, and we might need to face a lot of issues at the time of assessment. Okay, if we face a sunky, I would say a really bad officer, then it may happen that he'll disallow the entire refund claim and he'll say you go for the filing of June refund claim. And since till that time, if I am realizing this mistake after 2 years, 3 years down the line, the time, it has already been time barred, because time barring is of two years, right? So please be careful. The idea of having this session again and again is that there are a lot of provision, or there are a lot of small provisions which we are not taking care at the time of filing of the refund applications. So we have to be very mindful when we do such kind of applications, and when we are advising client, or whenever our client is filing such applications. So the turnover of services is linked to receipt. Okay, now how do I compute 1.5 times? Do I compute in the entire turnover, or it is to be product qua product, or what if in a scenario where I am into 100% export, will it have a retrospective amendment? How it will flow? So to answer your question, these questions one by one, it has to be looked qua product, because if I'm selling laptop along with the mobile phone, I cannot consolidate it and see domestically kya price and at what price I am doing exports. Okay, I have to see for the I have to check for the laptop separately and for the mobile phone separately. Or what if I'm into 100% export? So if you are into 100% export, if you are not domestic supply such product, you can check for the similarly placed supplier. Or so what we have done in one of the case, where when we have taken the quotation from the India Mart for the similar product, and we have submitted those quotations to the officer. I have seen the officers also insisting on the CA certificate. Generally, that's what I believe, that as a CA, I am not an authority to certify whether the product has 1.5 times value or not. I think we need to be careful, and we have to take proper or comprehensive MRL from management before signing such kind of certificates, to be given to the authorities. So this is another area where officer is insisting that you need to submit the CA certificate that your export value is only 1.5 times or limited to the 1.5 times value of the goods. how do we compute adjusted total turnover? So total turnover is same, turnover in a state minus turnover of service. So suppose there are 10 transactions, 10 bills you have raised, 7 for the goods, 3 for the services. So how do you compute total turnover? 10 means out of 10, 3 you have to remove. Okay, 7 plus whatever amount you have received for the services, you have to add it back. Okay, so that's how you compute the total turnover. It is exactly same how we are computing zero rated supply. The relevant period means for the period which claim have been filed. It can be a month, it can be a year, it can be 2 years. So again, in lockdown last year, the government has allowed for filing. They have issued a circular 135 and they have allowed filing the refund claim across financial year due to there was a case in Delhi High Court which so earlier circular 125 was restricting the filing of refund claims to a particular financial year. The said position has been challenged in a Delhi High Court, and Delhi High Court said that there is no restriction which is there in the GST law, so a circular cannot impose the restriction. And accordingly, by taking the cognizance of Delhi High Court judgment, the department has issued the circular and said that the refund can be filed across financial year also. This January 21 and April 22, we have already discussed. The refund will be lower of 3. Whenever you are going to file a refund of accumulated ITC, it will be lower of 3. One is the whatever you are computing through 89.4 formula, whatever consolidated balance available at the time of filing of the refund application, or whatever credit balance is there at the time of relevant period. So suppose that you are filing the refund application today for the period of January 21. So you have to compute lower of 3. One is that whatever is coming from the formula 89.4 formula, which we have discussed, that is net ITC multiplied by turnover of zero rated, value of zero rated supply divided by total turnover. Consolidated, the ITC, which is just so the ITC balance as on January 21, whenever you file the January 21 return, let's assume you must have filed on Feb 20, 20th Feb. So the credit balance after filing of January return and the credit balance as on today. So as on today, if you are filing on 11 July, so whatever credit balance is there, on 11 July, the lower of 3 will be eligible for the refund. There was a confusion regarding to computation of total turnover. So again, in the lockdown, the government has issued a circular and explained how the total turnover will be computed. I'll tell you what is the confusion. So let's assume I'm selling a product at 200 rupees in domestic market and I have sold 5 units. And the same product I'm selling to the exporter, to the client located outside India at 350 rupees. And I have sold 350 into 5, which is, 1750, and my total turnover is 2750. The confusion was there that I cannot go beyond 1.5 times of 200, so which is coming to 300. 300 into 5, which is 1500. So my export turnover is coming to 1500. Whether should I take total turnover as 2750 or 1500 plus 1000? So the government has clarified that you don't have to take 2750 because I take 2750. That means I'm losing out on the credit. So the government has clarified by this example. This is extract of the circular, that if your turnover is coming to zero rated supply is coming to 1500, so you have to add it to the domestic supply. So 1000 plus 1500 is coming to 2500. So 1500 divided by 2500 multiply by net ITCs, which is 270 to 162 is the eligible refund to you. So that's how they have clarified. There was a lot of confusion around this, and the government industry body has represented that you need to clarify it, because otherwise if I take 2750 as a denominator, I am losing out on my refund value. So this has been clarified on 12th March of 21. So 3 months back they have issued this clarification. Now let's see what is the process. So like we have seen for the IGST paid, let us understand what is the process for accumulated credit. So the first step is the filing the refund application, which is RFD1. If the documents in order, okay, they'll issue an acknowledgement within 15 days. They are bound to issue acknowledgement within 15 days. Friends, there is another facility available at GST portal under grievance section. If they are not issuing a 15 days, you can specifically put a grievance. You have a tab that you have filed the refund application, you have not received the acknowledgement within 15 days. You can file a grievance over there. Believe me, you'll get a call from the officer and they'll do the needful. So this is where the government is actually supporting us, and how the technology is helping us as a professionals. If the documents are not in a proper shape, the officer can issue a deficiency memo, which is RFD 03. If a deficiency memo is issued, you need to file a fresh refund application. So once the deficiency memo is issued, your refund application will be treated as a fresh refund application. Sorry. Again, there was an anomaly relating to this thing, that I have filed the refund application on 1st April to 2020. The officer is sitting on this application. After 6 months, he'll issue a RFD 03. So for example, let's assume a scenario that refund application for the month of July 17. Okay, it was supposed to be filed by August 19, within 2 years of limitation. I have filed the application by July 19. Okay, I have filed the refund application. The officer was sitting on this application, and after 3 months, in September 19, he has rejected the refund application. Not rejected, he has issued a deficiency memo saying that your application is not proper. Now, sitting in September, I have to again file it. So when I am going to file again for the July 17, it has shown a pop-up that you have already, exceeded 2 years. So you cannot file the application. So there was a huge gap on this thing, because the officer was literally not issuing deficiency memo within 15 days. Neither they were acknowledging within 15 days. So again, a lockdown move, a very welcome move. Last month on 18th May, the government has clarified, or they have issued a notification that the period, the deficiency memo period. Okay, so from the date of filing of the application till the time the deficiency memo has been issued, has to be excluded for the computation of 2 years. So those 3 months will be excluded from the computation of 2 years or computation of time barring. So this is again, a very recent amendment. So you need to file a fresh application. It will be treated as a fresh application. Now, there is a mandate that, he has to issue RFD 04, and he has to give 90% refund. If he has a query, he can issue RFD 08. You can reply under RFD 09. And if he is satisfied, he can give you a final order. If he feels not satisfied, he can reject the refund under RFD 6. You can approach the appellant authority. We have recently received favorable orders from the appellant authority. So the appeal part is also working. It is online now. So you can file appeal, you'll get a hearing, you can get early hearing as soon as 30 days, 40 days, and you can represent your case and you can get the favorable order. And again, you can file a refund application on the basis of that order. Your refund will be processed. If everything is fine and the officer is feel that whatever you have filed is everything is good, they can issue the RFD 6 and they can issue a payment order. Recently, another amendment relating to adjustment, RFD 7. So they are allowed, if there is any proceeding is pending against you and you have a confirmed demand, they can hold on to your refund and they can issue RFD 07 to adjust your refund amount. So this is the entire process. Then what are the documents which I am supposed to submit? So for unutilized credit, you have to submit. This is again, provided under Circular 125. This is the extract of the circular. Declaration under second and third proviso 54.3. Second and third proviso 53 is nothing. The second proviso is that if the goods are subject to export duty, I cannot, I cannot file for the refund. So I have to make an undertaking, that declaration that the goods are not subject to export duty. Third proviso is that I have not claimed any drawback relating to, central taxes or state taxes. Undertaking in relation to section 16.2c. 16.2c is nothing but the I would not say matching of credit. 16.2c is talk about that the tax which is charged to you, on which you have claimed the input tax credit, has actually been paid to the government. So wherever the invoices are reflected in GSTR 2A, it is sorted. So you can give the undertaking that if any refund is found to be beyond this provision or ultra virus to this provision, I'll refund back. And then there is a statement 3, 89.2b and rule 89.2c, which is nothing as simple, statement of in case of export of goods, you have to see the invoices, shipping bill details, shipping bill number, shipping bill date, and EGM number, EGM date. In case of services, you need to give invoice detail, invoice number, invoice invoice date and FIRC number and FIRC date. Statement 3A is nothing but a computation under 89.4, which we have already discussed. So this is on the documentation part, the refund to be filed before the expiry of 2 years from the relevant date. How do we decide what is the relevant date? So in case of export of goods out of India by sea or air, the date on which the ship or aircraft in which such goods are loaded leaves India, that is the relevant date. In case, exports through land route, the moment the goods pass the custom frontier, that is the relevant date. By post, date of dispatch of goods from the post office or, to a concerned person outside India or from a private courier company. Export of service, it is very clear, we have to keep in mind that invoice or payment, whichever is later, will be the relevant date. So if services is completed prior to the receipt of payment, the date of receipt of convertible foreign exchange will be the due date. If the payment had been received prior to the issuance of invoice, then the date of issuance of invoice will be the relevant date for filing of the refund. That's it on my part. I think we have covered. So now we can take the questions and answers, if any, or any issue if you want any deliberation relating to it. So I'll take, there is one question. In the last budget, there was amendment that now export without payment of tax only would be allowed and export with tax will be allowed, for which government will notify. Is there any notification issued? Will refund not be granted for invoices with payment of tax, and from what period as refund can be claimed only when amount is received based on FIRCs? Okay. So yes, there was an amendment that government will notify on particular type of exports on which I can claim the refund of with payment of tax. Okay. So right now, there is no restriction. I can export any goods. Okay. The restrictions which we discussed was there 78, 79, where I am, claiming, where I am procuring from merchant exporter, or wherever, I am procuring through advance authorization, and also those restrictions are there. Okay. But it was not restricted on the goods level, on the item level. I can export textile also and pay the taxes and claim the refund. I can export laptop also and pay the IGST and claim the refund. Okay. Now in the last budget, what the government has done, again, they have given reason that, it is due to fake invoicing. It was very interesting case, so what used to happen that there was a product of 10 rupees. Okay. The people used to export at 400 rupees. Okay. And the 390 of value addition, what they used to do, they used to avail the credit on the basis of fake invoices, and they pay the taxes on 400 rupees and claim the refund. This entire racket has been busted, and the government has realized that there has to be, there is a need to put some restrictions on these kind of transactions. So I am sure, I agree that the genuine exporter is also suffering due to this provision, but that is the reason of 1.5 times come into play. Again, they have made an amendment saying that I'll only allow to a particular notified exports, which can be done with payment of taxes. Other, you go for the accumulated ITC. Whatever ITC is accumulated, you claim the refund. Because if you go for the accumulated ITC, definitely a smaller assessment, or the officer will look into the detail and a smaller assessment will happen. So it can be checked, or there can be a check mechanism. Otherwise, with payment of ITC, with payment of taxation, there is no check mechanism. So they have made the amendment, but there is nothing which has been notified yet. So as on date, today, what we stand on 11 July, you can export any goods with payment of tax and you are eligible for the refund. Is there any notification issues? No notification has been issued to that effect. Will refund not be granted for invoices with payment of tax? And from what period as refund can be claimed only when amount is received based FIRC? I'm sure I'm not, so I'm not clear on the question. The idea is that if it is talking about the export of goods, okay, there is no need to, there is not a prerequisite to receive amount in convertible foreign exchange or BRC or FIRC. In fact, in circular 125, generally in the past, the officer used to insist on the BRC copies for export of goods also, or FIRC copies for the export of goods also. In circular 125, they have categorically mentioned that there is no need to submit FIRC and BRCs for the export of goods. So if the question is relating to export of goods, there is no need to submit it. But coming the 96B into play, they can definitely ask, but that too, you can receive the amount within 1 year or within the FEMA guidelines prescribed. So they can ask for the, in the assessment for the FRC and BRC copies. So earlier there was no requirement to maintain BRC FRCs for export of goods. Now there is a requirement, but whether it is a prerequisite to file the refund claim, no. Whether officer can ask for those details at the time of processing of the refund claim, the answer is no. There is no power and there is no restriction on these things. For services, the FIRC is must. When you file the refund application itself, at that time only they ask for the FIRC number, FIRC date. So you need to fulfill all those details in the refund statement also. And at the time of assessment or at the time of processing of the refund claim, the officer can definitely ask for the FIRC's copies, and we are bound to submit those details to him in case of export of services. The next question is how to insert details of export in case of CSB 5. Okay, here the port codes are as per Express Cargo Clearing System, which are not available in GSTR 1. So sir, the port code was there, IN, BM, BOM, 4, IM. So export cargo, so there are 2 or 3 types of port code which is available. So you need to mention those details in GSTR 1. It is accepting it and we are submitting it. So I am not sure whether there's a restriction on mentioning port code of CSB 5 in GSTR 1. You can very well mention it and the department is accepting it. How to details export in case of CSP 5. CSP 5, if your question is relating to shipping bill number, because currently the shipping bill number are coming into 15 digit or 10 digit, while the GSTR 1 accept only 5 to 7 digit of shipping bill number. So what we are doing, we are mentioning last 5 digit or 6 digit of the shipping bill, because so the first 4 digit appears to be port code detail. Then we have a date, and then we have a shipping bill detail. So in case of CSB 5, you can mention the last 5 digit of shipping bill in GSTR 1. The next question is that I have made purchases in March and April in both months and sales in April 21 only. In which period I need to claim refund, March or April? Please advise. Sir, you can claim for both the months. You can file a single refund application for the period of March and April. Both the ITC will be clubbed. The turnover of both the months will be clubbed. Okay, and accordingly you will arrive at a refund figure. We have seen a scenario where in a startup or in a particular tech company, where company has spent a lot on the tech, and they have spent 1.5 years or 2 years building the system, and they keep claiming ITC with zero revenue. And revenue is happening. So suppose in the entire 2021 they had a purchases. Okay, there was zero revenue. In 21 in April they had a revenue. You can file the refund for entire 13 months, starting from April 20 to April 21. There is no restriction. The officer has to give you the refund. Okay, it might not sound logical, but that is the provision, and we have claimed the refund, and it is very much legal, and you will get the refund. What about unutilized ITC after export refund? Can the consolidated unutilized ITC be claimed in the next application? No, sir. So suppose you have filed the refund application, continuing with the current example, let's assume you had purchases in March and you have some purchases in April 21. You have filed a refund application, okay, proportionately, and suppose there was a credit of 100 rupees in March and 100 rupees in April. Okay, if the entire turnover is if the entire turnover is zero rated supply, you will claim entire 200 rupees, you'll get the 200 rupees back. Okay, if there is a domestic supply, let us envisage a scenario where it can happen that you can have certain unutilized ITC. If there is a domestic supply, you must have paid the taxes on it. Okay, so out of 200 you must have paid 50 rupees. Let's assume 150 is there, but if you do proportionate, you'll get the 150 rupees because it is directly proportionate to the export turnover. Let's assume a scenario where the refund claim is coming to 130. Okay, so 200 was total ITC in March and April, 100 and 100. Okay, 50 rupees you have utilized for the purpose of output liability, and now you are balanced with 150, and your refund claim as per 89.4 or the formula is coming to 130 rupees. So you claim for the 130 rupees, 130 will be deducted from your credit ledger. Okay, 130 rupees you will receive in bank. Let's assume everything is fine, all the purchases are matching. Now what can be done with 20 rupees? Can you file a re-application or again application of unutilized ITC? No. Answer is no. You cannot file a second application for the same period. Okay. There is no mechanism that you can file this application, because again, if you file application, you have to apply the same formula, net ITC available multiplied by turnover, turnover of zero rated divided by total turnover, the same figure will come. Okay. So it doesn't make sense. There are ways you can structure this transaction. What you can do after, once this is accumulated. Okay, what can be done? Let's assume you accumulate 20 rupees every 2 months. Okay, so 120 rupees you have accumulated in the entire 2021. In let's assume in 21-22, and in April 22, what you can do, you can make export with payment of GST. Okay, and utilize this 120 rupees against that. Okay, so there is a structuring possible. You can utilize 120 rupees against that, and then you can claim the refund. That is possible. Okay, and there are a lot of structuring which is around this is possible, and I'm sure all of us are doing that. We are effectively claiming all the ITC which is pending in the credit ledger. But to answer on technical terms, unutilized ITC after claiming of a refund, after filing a refund application, can it be claimed? No, it cannot be claimed. Can it be adjusted against the with payment of IGST? Yes, it can be adjusted against with payment of IGST. But the next question is, what about unutilized ITC after export refund can be consolidated? I think I have already answered that, Mayurji. Is it okay to claim refund in the period April 21 only for the purchases made in March and April 21? Sir, so see, there are two things which is possible. Suppose you had ITC of 100 rupees of purchase in March, 100 rupees of purchase in April. Okay, what can be done? Either you claim 100 in March and claim 100 in April. You file a refund application of March to April, and you apply the formula on 200 rupees as a net ITC. This is one scenario which is possible. The second scenario which is possible, that you forgot to claim the ITC in March. You had purchases in March, you didn't book it and you didn't claim in GSTR 3B. You claimed those 100 plus April 100, 200 in April. Okay, and you file a refund application only for the month of April. Okay, again the formula will be applied, 200 multiplied by export turnover divided by total turnover. Now the third scenario which should not be doing is that you have claimed 100 rupees in March, you have claimed 100 rupees in April, and you are filing refund application only for the period of April 21. Then the formula will be applied on 100 rupees only. So the ideal way, either you file for the refund application of March to April 21 and you apply the formula on 200 rupees, or you claim the entire credit in April and you file for the refund application for the month of April. And again, which one is better out of these two? I think the answer depends on how much export turnover you have in March and how much export turnover you have in April. Let's assume the entire April turnover is export. So it is better for you to claim the entire credit in April and claim the entire 200 as a refund. If you have a export turnover in both the months and you have domestic turnover in only in month of March, then also it makes sense you to claim the entire credit in April. If you have domestic and April, domestic as well as export turnover in both the months, it depends on, you can make the working in Excel and see which will be the beneficial scenario for you. That's it. Any other queries?
Mehul ji, you can write your query in the chat box, please. क्वेरी अभी तक आई नहीं है. Mehul ji, please unmute. Nikul bhai.
Yes, madam. Sorry. Mehul bhai, no? Asked to unmute. Mehul bhai,
हेलो,
हाँ बोलिए सर.
हाँ जी मेहुल भाई.
आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ जी आ रही है.
हाँ हाँ सर, say for example I am making the 100% export. Every month I am making the with payment of the GST refund. In the still sometime it will be the remain the unutilized ITC. Say for example in April I have the ITC 110 rupees, but my output ITC output of the total of the ITC is only 100 rupees. So 10 rupees unutilized. Every month some small amount will be unutilized. So any of the 1 month I can use the without payment of the GST, and then I can utilize that altogether 1 year or some accumulated ITC in 1 month.
Mehul ji, when we are saying ki you have accumulated ITC, does that mean that we are a loss-making company, or we are availing ITC of 18% and we have a product of 3%? Is that kind of scenario we are talking about?
Yes. Output is 5% maximum is there, and input sometimes 12% and 18% is there. So it will be little bit higher side the ITC.
Okay, so Mehul ji, what can be done? So as of now, I think the first thing is that we need to change the mechanism. It doesn't make sense for you to go for with payment of IGST. You should be going without payment of IGST, and you should be in that particular mechanism. You will be able to claim the entire 100% ITC. Now, what can be done for the ITC accumulated for the past? Do you have any? So there is no domestic supply. I understand that it is only export of
100% export.
Export of 100% export. Sir, I think there are one or two ways we need to check the legalities, how it will flow. But otherwise, as on date, how the mechanism and the process stands, the idea is that first thing what you can do, you can change the mechanism. And if you have any kind of, wherever you have export higher, or whenever in which month you have margins are higher. Sometimes what people does I'm not proposing that this should be done, but sometimes what people does, I'll tell you what happens. They'll do without payment of IGST, okay, for a particular 2 or 3 months. So whatever is accumulated during those months, they'll claim it. People defer their credit, okay. Let's assume you have 20 rupees, 100 rupees accumulated till date. What people does, they generally defer the IGST or ITC. So suppose in July they don't claim, they don't claim the ITC at all. July they have a export with payment. They utilize this ITC, accumulated ITC with payment. They get the refund. In August, what will we do? They'll claim the July ITC and they claim the August ITC, and that they do without payment of tax, and accordingly they get the entire refund of July and August. This is what generally people do to avoid such kind of scenarios. I am not saying to deliberately delay the ITC, but around this you can think of a solution. I'm sure you'll get a solution and your entire ITC can be monetized. I hope I'm clear. Mehul ji?
Yes, sir. But what about the earlier months? I have unutilized balance with that CGST, SGST, IGST. That can be utilized in 1 month.
Yeah, that can be utilized. No, you cannot file the refund claim for unutilized ITC. So, for example, let's assume a scenario in July 21, you have 0 ITC. Let's assume a scenario, आपका accountant ने bill book करना रह गया. Okay, you have not booked the ITC at all, but you have sale. Okay. Since you have sale, you need to make the payment of IGST. Okay.
Yes.
to making that payment of IGST, you can claim this entire, you can adjust the IGST or CGST, SGST balance available with you, which was accumulated during the year.
Yes.
Okay. So that can be zeroed in July, August, September. Let's assume that can be zeroed. Now, July ka ITC, which you have forgot to claim, you can claim in August month.
Yes.
Okay. And August ITC also you can claim in August month.
Yes.
Then in August you can file an LUT. Okay, a letter of undertaking, and you can
filed
do the
every
refund. LUT is already filed. Then you can do the export of goods without payment of GST. Okay, since it is 100% export unit, you can get the entire refund of July and August.
yes, yes, yes.
So that's how people does, structuring. We can take it offline also, but I'm sure a structuring is possible and you can monetize your entire ITC.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
But there is a restriction of 5%. I think the question is not clear. If someone can write it again, that what is the question?
Shashikant ji. Shashikant ji, you may unmute your mic, sir. Or you may send a chat. Shashikant ji, are you able to hear me? So you may write it, sir. You may write it on the chat window. Gautam ji, just give us a minute. He's writing his query on the chat box.
Sure, sir.
This was with reference to Mehul Bhai's point. To claim higher ITC, he will have to go for refund. There is a restriction of 5% with respect to that.
I'm still not clear. So the solution which I was proposing is that, let's assume, I'll take an example. Let's assume you have 100 rupees of accumulated ITC till June 21, and you have already filed the refund till June 21. And since you were under IGST paid mechanism, there was an accumulated ITC of 100 rupees. For the simplicity, let's assume it was IGST balance. Okay. Now the problem with Mehul Bhai's situation is that in any scenario, wherever he choose to pay IGST, he will always be sitting on ITC credit, because his exports are taxable at 5%, while he is receiving goods at 5% also and services at 18% also. Presuming it is not a loss-making company, but still he'll be sitting on a credit. So what can be done to effectively structure this transaction? So the solution which generally people tends to seek is that what can be done that in July, let's assume you don't have a credit or you forgot to claim any credit for the month of July. July you have exports. Okay, you didn't book the ITC, whatever reason, GST 2A में नहीं दिख रहा था, कुछ भी reason से आपने claim नहीं किया because you were not sure कि भैया मिलेगा कि नहीं मिलेगा, या accountant नहीं आया, whatever reason, but exports you have done. So let's assume you have made an export of 500 rupees. Okay, 500 is chargeable to 5%. There is no ITC during the month. So 500 into 5%, 25 rupees you have to pay, make the payment. 25 you have paid through the ITC balance which was available on June 21. So let's assume you made an export of 2000 rupees. Same situation has happened in August also, same situation has happened in September also. Let's assume you have made the export of 2000 rupees. You couldn't book any ITC due to any reason. Okay. You make the payment of 100 rupees. You utilize the 100 rupees which was available as on 1st July. Okay. The credit balance will be 0. This 100 rupees which you are paying on export of goods, you can claim as a refund through automated route. It will automatically come to your account. Now, in October, what you can do, or what generally people do, is that in October they go for the accumulated ITC mechanism. So in October, let's assume you have July, August, September, October, all the ITC together of 500 rupees you are claiming in the month of October. Okay, and since it is 100% export oriented unit, you will be having a export in October. Okay, so let's assume you have an export of 200 rupees. You, instead of paying 1,000 rupees, instead of paying IGST on it, you go for the accumulated credit. So you'll file a refund application for the month of October. October, what is the net ITC of October? It is 400 rupees. Okay, whatever you have claimed. Okay, 400 into what is the total turnover? 500 divided by total turnover, export turnover 500 divided by total turnover 500. Entire 400 will be eligible for the refund, and you will get the refund. Okay, so technically, as on 31st October, you will have zero balance. This is one solution which public to follow. Okay, I am not advising to defer the ITC, but I am saying that these kind of solution and structurings are available. Okay, you should not deliberately delay the ITC, because ultimately it will tantamount to tax evasion. So, but there are solutions available. This is one of the example which I have given, which people are following. So around that, you can structure your transaction, and I am sure there will be no ITC blockage in this particular client or particular territory. I'm sure that I'm clear on this question now. What can we do with unutilized ITC left after refund application? Can we claim? I think I have already answered this query. Can we claim refund of ITC due to that GST rate on input and input service is higher and the GST on sale is very less? As my client is into diamond business, as refund of export is very less, there is a huge accumulated ITC. Sir, again, to answer your question, if your client is into diamond business, let's assume diamond is, so the diamond and precious metal is taxable, let's assume at 0.5% and 3%, so your output is taxable at 3%, and you are receiving services, cutting services, rental, and all those services at 18%. In a technical scenario, if you are selling in domestic, okay, you will be sitting on ITC credit. What you can do is that service is restricted, okay, under IDS, inverted duty structure. But for the goods, if there is a ITC accumulated, you can go for inverted duty structure. Since you mentioned that your client is into export, you simply go for the without payment of tax. Okay, if you go for the without of payment of tax, whether it is diamond or anything, okay, you go for the without payment of tax, your entire ITC on goods and services eligible as a claim of refund. So the same formula will apply: net ITC into export turnover divided by total turnover. Okay, and then you can that's how you compute the refund. If it's 100% export, you can claim the 100% refund. Similarly, what people do, they plan their sales also, in a manner that I'll be doing export in August and I'll be doing domestic in September. That's how they can achieve a optimization in ITC. So again, the way you have structured the ITC in earlier example, you can structure the ITC and sale in this scenario also. You can plan your sale that, you'll be doing Diwali, so I'll be doing domestic only, I'll not do any export. Such kind of structuring people do to, monetize this ITC thing. I think I'm done. There are no more queries. Any other queries? But he has export as well as local sale. If he has export as well as local sale, we can connect offline. So if it is a regular business, it is tend to have accumulated ITC. That's how the entire industry is struggling, in be it diamond, be it textile, be it precious metal. This entire industry has a problem. A lot of representations has been made. In fact, I was also part of one of the representations, but there is nothing concrete which has come from the government side yet. So the ITC is there. The only thing which people are doing, they are taking measures which I would not advise to take, but that's how currently they are taking a stopgap measures or arrangements. But that's there. It's an industry issue. We really can't help unless the government takes some kind of measures to accommodate or support the industry. Thank you, sir.
Any other queries? Members, please, if anybody have any query, please post in the chat box. I think no queries left.
Okay. Ritu, so can I take 2 more minutes on a different topic? I'll quickly finish in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So friends, I hope I would be able to do some justice or to this subject. The only thing which wherever I go, I speak about, and I would like to communicate is that there are new networking guidelines which has been issued by the ICI. I'm sure everybody has heard about it, and most of the people must have gone through it. In Feb 21, ICI has issued new networking guidelines. Please, please do study and take the benefit of it. It is very wonderfully drafted, and this is the only thing which can help SMPs like us to compete with big firms and pitch big clients and get we can create a pan India network, and we can create a network across industry expertise. So the only request is that please do read these guidelines, and if you feel that it is a good document and it is a good, please create awareness about it. So that's it from my side for today's session. Thank you, Ritu.
Thank you so much, Gautam ji. Thank you so much for this wonderful session. Your explanations were very informative and made it easy to understand for our members. And I would like to mention that we are truly happy to have you here as our own study circle member, as a speaker. Thank you so much for sharing knowledge with us. I request CA Mayur Kothari to present formal vote of thanks. Mayur, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gautam ji, for such a wonderful lecture to export of GI. Hello.
Mayur, I think some network issue is there. I request Nikunj bhai to present formal vote of thanks.
Hello.
Mayur, are you there?
Hello.
Mayur.
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Now it is audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you, Ritu madam, and thank you, Gautam ji, for such a wonderful lecture on our what we call as refund on the GST against the export and solving our query. Thank you for such a wonderful lecture on Sunday afternoon, sir. And I will be happy to have you in, and I'm also thankful for your social care. Because I know Gautam ji, he has helped in COVID so much to some of the members related to that. And thank you, Gautam ji. And it is over to Ritu madam. Thank you for such a lecture.
Thank you, Mayur.
Thank you, Mayur ji. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me over here. I think it is really pleasure to speak our own study members. It was always a dream, when I used to visit Bandha Study Circle, that one day, someday, we'll get some opportunity to present our views. Thank you so much, and thanks again, Ritu and the entire team, that you are providing so many opportunities and to our people and in-house speakers to present their views. I'm sure that in future we'll have a lot of good speakers, and we'll have a lot of people speaking at various forums because of the opportunities provided by Bandha CP Study Circle. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And we request you to share your PPT.
Sure, I'll do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ritu.
Thank you,
Thank you,
members,
Nikunj ji.
for making
Thank you.
this
Thank you so
event
much.
resounding success.
Thank you, members.
Thank you.